And welcome once again this week's edition of the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and I'm joined as always by a bloke who, as far as I know, has never brought back 5 kilos of headphones from Colombia. It's Titus O'Reilly.
Is that what it was meant to have been?
Mm.
So it ended up being cocaine, though.
Yeah.
You often get those mixed up.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Whenever I go to, I only go to Colombia because it's renowned for its high quality headphones. You know.
I did see that the mum of this girl that's been caught, this woman, I don't know how old she is.
Oh, she's early 20s. She's pretty young.
Right. So she's been caught with cocaine on her in quite a sizable amount, basically a whole backpack full. And her mum's saying she's been duped. And I saw the Colombian police.
I saw the photo.
I saw the photo. And the police officer said, I don't really believe that story, which is...
Yeah, when I first thought 15 pairs of headphones, do you buy 15 pairs?
Yeah.
But I thought if they were in the box and it says Sony or, you know, Dr. Dre or whatever, and it was packed into the little earpieces, you might think, oh, she's been duped here. But there's 15 black wrapped like packages that just look like drugs to me. So well,
and you'd know having worked in TV for so long.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone can spot large amounts of cocaine from far away,
a black wrapped little package has just got Logies written all over it. You know?
Yeah, that's right. It's ruined the Logies this year.
Good luck to her, but I don't know what it's got to do with this podcast. But
you've really taken us off topic.
Yeah, well,
that's our new focus.
I always think of some stupid way to introduce you, and that was probably not my finest moment. But yeah,
I think people would love to hear us interpret the news of the day, the non-sporting news.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe
that's a whole new podcast.
Maybe we could, replace, I don't know, Mark Latham and Andrew Bolt or something. A couple of nutters.
The outsiders, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Oh.
I don't know if I hate people enough to do a Mark Latham impression.
I do.
Yeah, but I hate people for specific people.
Yeah, I hate people generally.
Yeah, but I like to get
all people.
I like to get to know someone
before you hate them.
I like to get to hate them on a personal level, not on a broad brush.
Yeah, no, that's
because it's lazy to hate someone just because of their just because of certain things. You need to kind of drill in.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. You
always find a reason.
Yeah, you can.
If you dig deep enough.
If you try hard enough, you can find a reason to hate anyone.
But put in the shovel work.
Yeah.
Don't just lazily dial it in.
Yeah, true. No, I understand that.
I've long said that. Now, speaking of
people we actually like,
people we like, are people who have become supporters of this podcast and donating a monthly amount
stipend.
Yes, and keep us being able to do this and also enable us to do all the stuff we do with writing and put together shows to tour and all these sort of things. So if you want to become, thank you to them. And if you want to become a supporter, just go to titusoreilly.com and you can actually
follow the prompts.
Follow the prompt. There's got a support bit up the top in the menu and join us on this wonderful journey. And someone said to me the other day,
this journey, what's this, The Voice?
No, I'm saying journey because that's what Simon Goodwin says every time.
Oh, he does too.
All these coaches, there's 2 things that coaches now say.
Yeah.
Brand.
Yep.
Brand of football.
Our brand of footy. Yeah, that's the brand
instead
we
of
want to
style
play.
Or, they all say brand.
Yeah, it's the brand of footy we want to play.
Which I put brands in footy into one of 2 things. You're good at it or you're bad at it.
Yeah.
There's not much.
It's Coke or Pepsi.
I don't really care about much else. Like they also... Because really, how different is it? Like, you're either good at it or not.
Exactly. You play well one week or you play like crap. So, there's your 2 brands.
But Simon Goodwin says all the time about Melbourne, it's all part of the journey we're on. And I just cringe every time, I think.
True.
He's been on one management consultant course.
Too many.
Yeah, that's right. And does the whole thing. So anyway, we're on a wonderful journey and our brand is clear. One of our supporters told me this week that the reason they signed up to become a supporter is, do you remember last week we were talking about how John Coates abused a cancer sufferer.
Yes.
And we got onto Ivan Milat, and I said, in fairness to Ivan Milat, he's never abused a cancer survivor by email. He said, the supporter wrote to me and said, I'm on board. Not many news outlets would launch a defence of Ivan Milat. So that's the unique independent voice we've brought to the media landscape.
Do you remember that time you and I had lunch with Ivan Milat?
When we were camping.
Yeah, when we had lunch with Ivan, I remember he said, "Is it hot in here or am I crazy?"
We do tend to bring up Ivan Milat a lot. I do, somehow. You've got a bit of a thing. I mean, you are cousins.
I had to change my name from Milat to Paradise for legal reasons.
I thought it was the other way around. He used to be Ivan Paradise. Once he's got a bit known, he went, I'm changing it to Milat.
I'm changing it to some...
Ivan Paradise. Gee, there we go. Cousin Ivan. Crazy Ivan, to quote a Hunt for the Red October term. Now, getting into reality, Serge.
Our lunch with Ivan's wasn't real.
Richmond met reality this week.
Didn't they?
And didn't they meet it hard?
Oh, that was a head-on collision, that one.
Do you think... This reminds me of North Melbourne last year, where they... Yeah. The worst thing they did is they lived up to everyone's expectations. Yeah. And it's usually when you meet someone's expectations of you, that's a good thing. But in this case, for 5 weeks, everyone said it to North, 9? It was 9 weeks.
Yeah, I was about to say it was 9 or 10.
Everyone was like, wait till they play a good side. And it's the same with Richmond. And a lot of their Richmond supporters said to me, I hate it because I think that is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then that is exactly what happened.
I tell you what, you say ran into reality. I mean, the one of the great things about Richmond is when the wheels fall off, they all fall off simultaneously, all 4 of them.
Yeah, this wasn't like a Roadrunner cartoon or something. You know? Yeah.
If it had been the first quarter was a cracking contest. If it had been like that for 4 quarters, and the Crows had just won.
Yeah, they wouldn't have lost any fans. Everyone would have said, imagine if that was at the MCG.
Yeah, they would have said, well, gee, the Crows are a great side. I mean, the Tigers, they might have lost today, but they could be the real deal. And everyone's sitting back going, they're pretenders again. I think they could well be.
I mean, it's also a sign of how far ahead Adelaide are. The only thing about it, their ability to score. Yeah. They're posting 140 plus scores all the time. Like, it's kind of, I think I was saying to someone, it's like when, you play a computer game on too easy a setting and you go, amazing. But they're a bit like that. It's scary how fast they are. And Richmond had, in fairness to Richmond, I know some people say, they didn't play many good plays, but they had one of the best defence going around statistically, and they just looked like amateurs against them. Once they put the foot down.
And the Tigers this week, they've got the Bulldogs this week, who they're pretty good, even though they got beaten by the Giants the other night. They're getting back close to their probably best form. Yeah. So here's all I'm saying is here's another test for the Tigers this week. They wouldn't want to get belted by the Bulldogs, or people will be really screaming.
No.
At the moment, I mean, the obvious 2 things to take out of that game last week was, the Tigers obviously aren't as good as they think they are, but the bloody Crows could be even better than everyone else thinks they are.
It's not even a doubt. The only thing I could say about the Crows in not being there in, September, is it's earlier in the year. Injuries, things like this could change it. That's the only thing is they're sort of, are they peaking at the wrong time? But I'm not really that worried about I don't think that's necessarily the case, but it's the only negative you can come up about them because they're just so good. The Giants, I think, are in a similar boat. I think they're very good and can match it with Adelaide to a point. But
that'll be a good game, that one.
And then the only other thing about the Bulldogs, I think, is, the Bulldogs obviously have a level they can go up and they haven't gone up it yet. So if they can get back to that, that'll be interesting. But apart from that, I mean, it's easy. Everyone's now saying, there's only 3 teams that can win it, which is the Bulldogs, Giants, and the Crows. I'm not sure if that's 100% true. I don't know where Port Adelaide are. They've had some bad losses.
They've been good, Port.
But they've had some,
Geelong have been really good, but they got found out by Collingwood of all people.
But they always lose to Collingwood. They still made a prelim last year. And,
they do.
So just with them, it comes down to...
I remember years ago... probably 8 or 9 years ago when they were winning flags, Geelong.
Yeah.
About round 18, they played Collingwood, who were hopeless.
Yeah.
And Collingwood won that game by about 90 points, and then Geelong went on and won the flag 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
So that Collingwood have always had the wood on Geelong. And last week when they tagged Selwood out of it, and Dangerfield didn't fire like he normally does, Collingwood got over him. But I still think that's more the Cats just had a bit of a bad day.
Well, few people have raised the fact that the Cats took one for the team and wanted to give the false hope to Collingwood to keep Buckley around longer. That's kind of like the theory that's going around.
Conspiracy
I've had a few people
suggest
that to me, saying we should be thanking Geelong.
Yeah.
And it is what Collingwood seem to have done over the Buckley era, which is descending into suddenly on the cusp of crisis where everyone's like, Buckley, if they lose this week, Buckley's going to be gone, and got to the boiling pointer, and then they pull out a victory and it all calms down for a few weeks, and then they might even win one of the next 3 or 4, or they'll come close in a couple, and then suddenly they have a couple of bad losses, and everyone again is like,
"We'll be back on the case."
He just doesn't quite bottom out enough.
No, you're right.
It's just bubbling along.
If they'd got flogged, like say Richmond had got flogged on the weekend
by Geelong,
oh, you couldn't have picked up a paper or turned on the radio this week.
No,
they'd be screaming. But now the other thing, I've got a couple of good mates who back for Collingwood. I get the call the other night. We're back in. I said, no, you're not. Typical Collingwood supporters.
We're back.
Last week you were screaming for Buckley's head. Now, we're back. We're back.
We're back.
We've turned the corner.
We're now fully in the running for 12th. Chris Brooks wrote in, will the Tigers release a club-sanctioned DVD box set of rounds 1 to 5, or will I have to buy a shady copy from the Caribbean market?
Does the Caribbean market still exist? I remember there was a Caribbean Gardens out at Roeville.
Yeah, there was that one where it was all dodgy. Because I was, as a kid, used to go, then we used to buy old. They was fully taped, like pirated, and the covers were so bad it was obvious they were pirated, like handwritten, some of them. And we used to get old WWF ones when we were kids, because there wasn't pay-per-view, or there wasn't, and we used to get them all. And so we'd be watching WrestleMania. There wasn't the internet then, and so we'd watch WrestleMania 6 months after it had happened, but we wouldn't have read any of the results because there was no internet, and there was not in the local paper. So unless you rang a mate in America, which would have cost you $200, you didn't know. So we'd watch it 6 months late, but it would be like watching it live on these dodgy pirated copies.
Well, I remember that was when I was a kid. It was a pre-DVD almost. I remember going out to Caribbean Market and buying bootleg cassettes.
Right.
I remember, and you could tell.
Taped off the radio.
Yeah, Gold Chisel was a good one.
Gold Chisel
was on the cover.
One of my favourite. Austrian bands.
Yeah, Austrian Crawl. Yeah.
Austrian Crawl. So, Chris, I think that's right. I think there will be a club-sanctioned DVD for the first 5 rounds of Richmond. I say to Richmond fans, just pretend that was the season, and it's now the off-season.
It was a short, sharp season, and you were very good.
No club has been in more crisis at 5-1 and 4th on the ladder than Richmond are now.
That's right. I mean, sure they got smashed, but they're still 5-1. I mean, they may not have. The Crows may have been the only decent side they've played this year, but you still will take 5-1. Doesn't matter who you are. Right?
No, I know and. Look, was that just an off night? Like, it didn't. It looked like a very off night, but who knows?
That last quarter, the second half was just appalling.
Oh, it was all. Yeah, it was really bad. But by then, it was so over. Sometimes, Matt Holland said Damien Hardwick said Richmond weren't 70 to 80 points behind Adelaide, yet they lost by 76. Fake news. That was funny when Hardwick was like, "We're actually much better than that result showed." Yeah, and I'm like, tried saying that. I tried that with my VCE results. Yeah. I'm actually much better than.
Should have 99.5 on that chemistry thing. I'm much better than the 47 that they gave me.
Try that after a romantic night out. It was actually much better than you remember.
I'm much better than that normally.
I thought I was much better than that performance actually showed. Well, you do have history then, so.
It's just a little close to the bone.
Now, we touched on Joel Selwood. He was not happy during the game because, one, he played terribly.
Yeah, he got, 17 possessions or something, which is half at least of what he normally gets.
And Collingwood just absolutely went at him all game. Yeah. He was a bit unhappy about the attention and more unhappy that the umps weren't backing him on all of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it was last week I was bagging Levi Greenwood as possibly not good enough.
I did remember that you bagged him like he shouldn't be playing AFL.
Like he's not in Collingwood's best 22 at any stage. But he tagged Selwood and did a fantastic job. He was the one who took him out of the game. And then Pendlebury stood up and, had a belter. That's the thing. You've got to love Pendlebury, what a terrific player he is. I mean, he usually stands up in those big games. Yeah. But,
he had one bad game and Buckley acted like he'd...
Yeah, and everyone's going, he's injured. He must be injured. So, well, no, not necessarily.
But don't you think... I don't pretend to be a tactical genius in sport, in AFL by any stretch of imagination, but it always surprises me, and I'd love someone to explain it. A coach to come out and I've heard them come out and explain why. So they all say, it's an 18-man defence you have to have. So you can't tag people because if you do that, it takes someone out and it just frees up others, right? Yet every time they talk about how it works against Selwood, it works against Sam Mitchell, and they seem to win. So there's got to be something in that there's something in there where, and they showed the stats of when Selwood is tagged and how badly he actually goes. And so I'm sure there are the top teams that are firing, like the Hawthorn of a few years ago, that if you tag Sam Mitchell, maybe because they were just so good across the board, that they would just cut you apart. But there are a lot of times when teams like Geelong and a few others where you go, they don't have tons of other players to really let them go through the other players because they're not as good and they'll turn it over more or not be as effective. It's worth tagging. And then every time you get this happen in the media and people...
Well, it was only a month ago.
This is amazing.
The tagger is dead. A month ago was
and now there's one today saying, maybe it's still alive. And I'm like, well, sure. I mean, I've always just been perplexed by that approach because teams often... Someone will smash them in the middle, and after the game, they'll say, I remember Hardwick, this has been asked to him a few times, how come you didn't tag him? Well, if you tag him, you lose because they just cut you up, and you go, but hang on, you just lost. And they had 40 possessions and 3 goals. So, it's kind of a move. You're saying, we would have lost a different way if we'd done that. Is that what you're saying?
Perfect example 2 years ago when Melbourne beat Adelaide. When Adelaide, they weren't flying like they are now, but they were building. They were building. They still had Dangerfield was their best midfielder.
Oh, did he play for Adelaide?
I think he did a few years back. And Melbourne 2 years ago were no good, as we traditionally aren't. But they got Bernie Vince to tag Dangerfield.
I remember,
and flatten him every time he got near the ball. Took Dangerfield right out of the game, and Melbourne beat Adelaide in Adelaide when Melbourne were no good and Adelaide were pretty good. So from that moment on, I've always been of the opinion that sometimes you have to tag the good players. I mean, it happens in junior footy, it happens in suburban footy. Normally in suburban footy, a tag means a belt behind play, but it still happens. But even at the highest level, sometimes it works.
But see, I think tag them, and then if what people are saying is, well, you need an 18-team defence, and if you devote one, it breaks down elsewhere. Well, let that happen, and then change. Let that happen, not assume that's going to happen and lose anyway. That's the thing I always find bizarre. Like coaches, the really good coaches seem to just have that ability to have a plan B and C, and the bad ones seem to be very rigid in, this isn't working, but I don't know what else I'm going to do.
And the old rule was too, is if you use one of your possibly lesser talented players to tag one of the opposition's elite players, the good player, he takes you to the ball. So if you can win 40 to 50% of the contest one-on-one, it means
or just negate them.
Yeah, or negate them. It means that the less talented player has more chance of getting the ball himself, which, again, negates the whole 18-man defensive theory.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, it's always...
Analyse tactics
We're getting a bit too into the actual,
It sounded like we knew what we were talking about.
Well, we admitted up front that we didn't, though, so I think that kind of gets out of trouble. Talking to someone who didn't know what they were doing or what they were talking about, Joe Daniher on the weekend, this was amazing to watch.
It was.
Kicked in his first 7 shots, and they were all pretty gettable. A couple were a bit harder, but he kicked no goals, 6 behinds, and 1 out on the full.
Yeah, one completely missed everything.
He then took a mark in the third term, and straight away he played on.
And he was only 25 metres out.
Yeah, and missed the shot.
Yeah.
And only then the umpire said, no, the mark wasn't set, come back. And I think the umpire really helped him there because a lot of other times that would have just been play on.
Bad luck.
And he kicked another point. So he could have been 0-7 and an out about on the full. He luckily kicked that goal and ended with 1 and 6.
But then he acted like bloody Eddie Betts.
Well, I think in fairness to him, I thought he was doing that mocking himself.
I know, he was mocking himself.
And I thought, well, at least he's got a sense of humour about it. It'd be better if he had less of a sense of humour and was more accurate at kicking goals.
I think that's probably John Worsfold's attitude to it too, you know.
Because even when everyone said, he was
pantomime and a few more goals would be handy.
Well, everyone said, he's a hero the week before and he's gone from a hero to 0 in 1 week and aren't people harsh? But I was like, well, he kicked 3.4 in the Anzac Day game too. Like he wasn't, even Bomber Thompson I saw comment, his ex-coach, or not ex-coach, but, was caretaker.
He was an ex-coach,
caretaker coach there, said he still didn't kick straight about that Anzac Day performance.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a massive issue because he's not reliable enough to be useful to them.
He always takes Melbourne apart in the air.
He's a terrific player. Like
if he'd kicked straight, it wouldn't have been all square at halftime. They would have been 5 goals in front, and it would have been a completely different ball game.
Yeah. He kept the door open for Melbourne to come back.
Having said that first half is arguably the worst game of football I think I've seen. I've never seen more turnovers. My son's under 12 game Sunday morning had less turnovers than this one. And although I did feel at half time that if Melbourne came out and played the brand of football that
on their journey,
that they could take care of Essendon, who'd run out of legs, and they did.
Well, they did, but that first half, if people didn't see it, it was like each side. So there was it was like a game of kick to kick where it would go between half back and half forward of just opponents kicking it. Not just like it would hit the ground, directly chest pass, on the chest passes to someone or an opponent who was on their own. Like, it wasn't even like they were kicking to contests or something. Like, it was like they were purposely picking out opponents. It was, I've never seen it that. No. I've seen that, everyone's seen that happen once or twice in a footy match, and but this happened for like 5-minute periods, like where it just went back.
Almost a whole half.
Like, it was kick to kick.
Someone said on Twitter at the time that how can this happen in a closed stadium with no wind?
Yeah.
And,
with supposedly professional athletes.
Professional footballers on supposedly a pristine surface.
Does it happen? I sometimes wonder, you see these things happen, right, where 1 or 2 people do it, 1 or 2 players do it, and then it gets in everyone's head in a way, and so
it becomes contagious.
It almost becomes contagious, because it was like that. It was almost like they're all, because even Jack Watt said, he did quite an interesting interview afterwards where he said, yeah, we're all starting to almost laugh. Like out on the field, they were all laughing because it was just at their own ineptitude. Like, God, we're terrible. I can tell you who wasn't laughing, the people watching it, because I was tearing my hair out.
The other thing I said at halftime was, do either of these teams look like finals contenders? Oh, I don't think so.
No, you're not going to. Keegan Gale wrote in, do you think the AFL will consider awarding 6 points for Joe Daniher kicking behinds and 1 point for a goal? Now, the thing I think about this is quite a good idea. You know why? I think a coach should be able to nominate a player each game and treat them like a hostile witness.
Right.
Say,
here's a new one.
And say, they are helping the opposition.
Yeah. So
every point is a goal and every goal is a point.
Okay.
Just for that player.
For that guy.
Permission to treat as a hostile witness. Because that's Joe Daniher was amongst Melbourne's best.
He was certainly helping Melbourne on Sunday.
So I actually like that idea. I think a coach should be able to do that. Yannick Oda wrote in, is Joe Daniher actually a right footer?
Because he was kicking everything on his left.
That's
which
what
I
they
think is his natural kicking.
Well, he thinks it is.
Yeah.
It could well not be. Gavin McDonald wrote in, who would win a shootout between Joe Daniher and North Korea?
That's what happened. The CIA were jamming his kicking leg.
They both couldn't hit a target, I can tell you that. The thing is, Daniher can kick. He's a bit like that. He can kick on the run often, and It really is just a tall guy that can take marks.
At this stage, that's all he is. That's all he is.
Brilliant at it, but
but if
highly mobile tall guy.
If he got the running game happen and could kick straight, he will become a genuine superstar.
Well, I mean, we can already see in the last, he kicked 3-4 in the Anzac Day, kicked 1-6, really 1-7 because one was out of bounds on the full. So if you just
he's getting 7 or 8 shots at goal a game, you know. If he puts it together one day, he'll kick 10.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping that, like North Korea, he just never pulls that together.
Yeah, he never pulls the trigger.
Now, Hawthorn and continuing their enjoyable descent towards the bottom of the ladder. After it looked like they'd bounced back the week before, they got absolutely belted by St Kilda down in Launceston.
Who'd have picked that?
It was brutal. I mean, they talk about how brutal the convict days were down there in Tasmania.
Tough right up Tassie.
There. Yeah. This was right up there.
And they've been unbeatable down there for years. I mean,
Hawthorn have,
yeah. Hawthorn. I mean, they've been good everywhere, but down in Tassie, you just generally write that one off.
This was... I mean, I was watching this and just thinking, well, the AFL Live app went down briefly.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
which was...
What a shock that was.
And by the time it got working again... which is only about 20 minutes, but, you know, as long as 20 minutes of my life. I tuned back in, Hawthorn are like 50 points down. They were pretty much neck and neck when it went down. Right. So they were just absolutely terrible. Clarkson said afterwards, he threatened that there would be catastrophic changes.
He's channeling a bit of North Korea work as well.
Yeah, what is this? They're all just... I thought that was what they did in the off-season. Why is this subtle? What's he taught? Hasn't it been done? This is the thing I always laugh about when coaches come out and say, you know, we're going to swing the axe, right? Yeah. We're going to, and you go, well, you just magically, here are some better players I've been hiding from you.
Exactly. We're going to swing the axe, or catastrophic change is a new one. It's usually we're going to swing the axe. We're going to be merciless this week. We're going to be looking at the kids. But, you know, who are you going to bring in? You're going to have maybe 2 guys who have played fair bit of senior footy, but are knocking on the door, who are a bit out of form.
Jack Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, or your Jack Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure how he fits into this scenario, Jack Fitzpatrick. But the rest are either kids you've just drafted who aren't ready, and the rest are VFL players. Catastrophic change. They do not have 8 good players to bring in.
And they haven't been drafting because they haven't had picks for a lot. Like they keep so. Yeah, it's not like there is this well of amazing players. I think
their best player for Box Hill last week was Taylor Duray, who's a good, serviceable player and has played in a couple of flags.
Yeah, but he's not going to swing you around.
But he ain't going to turn around 3 80-point losses.
Did you see St Kilda trolled Hawthorn on their banner about saying thanks for the pick?
Yeah, I saw that before the game. I thought, geez, you better win this one.
Well, that's the amazing thing. So little are the Hawks feared now. They've gone from, like, everyone thinks they're never going to lose to now St Kilda are not only trolling them.
They're getting bullied
in crepe paper. Not only are they being trolled in crepe paper.
When you're getting trolled by the St Kilda cheer squad.
Yeah, and then belted by the St Kilda. Like, really belted. Man. It's sort of... It's the end of an era, well and truly.
Hawks, I really can't wait to see the selection this week at Hawthorn. I'll be interested to see who he drops. I mean, he'll bring in maybe Duray and, I don't know, Billy Hartung, or he may have even played on the weekend. I don't know.
I don't think anyone played on the weekend.
But who's he going to drop? Gunston?
Well, there's talk of, like, Gibson's past it.
Gibson's
and a few like this that they're going to...
Gunston hasn't had I think he's kicked 1 goal in 6 games.
But this is the thing. Once a team gets about 5 to 10 players who aren't that good in their side, everyone looks terrible. Yeah. Pretty much everyone looks like they're the worst player ever, especially if they're just playing one certain role and it's impossible to play because you're not getting your hands on the ball.
True.
Or, you know. So the thing with Hawthorn is their style it hasn't been a contested style for a long time, but where they were brilliant is their kicking and disposal was so good.
Their keepings off. They introduced the really high quality keepings off game.
Yeah, and so
with about 10 left footers in the team.
I think that style, it's a style that you can pull off, but you need 18 or to 22 players really, who all have brilliant skills. And if you can have the luxury of that through hard work or whatever and good recruiting, it's a brilliant style and very hard to beat. But it is so hard to pull off regularly. And Hawthorn were kind of amazing because they could for so long. Yeah. But suddenly they've got a few of those players out who the foot skills just aren't there for a lot of these players anymore. Yeah. And Clarkson said this, he might have to change the whole game plan. because it's just not working the way it used to work. Because that style, they're not good enough to actually play what they used to play.
No.
So
they'd happily have Jordan Lewis back, I reckon, as far as the foot skills, and Sammy Mitchell, perhaps.
Yeah, well, the good thing, you could see Jordan Lewis's influence at Melbourne on the weekend, and also just he's really getting Melbourne up to speed on tribunal procedures. There wasn't a lot of...
I'm looking forward to Melbourne Hawthorn this week. Do you think Lewis and Hodgie, do you reckon they'll go head to head?
Who knows?
Oh, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. They'd be good mates, but there'd be no love lost between those two.
Well, we all know Melbourne probably going to lose that. So anyway, Hawthorn. In other news around Hawthorn, to me, which was a huge shock and very disappointing, they appointed a woman as CEO.
They are at rock bottom, aren't they?
Oh, I mean,
they are struggling.
What? Cameron Schwab can't get a call? There are incompetent men out there who have missed out on a job. CEO of AFL Club was like a job for life for incompetent men, and now women are getting them. and it's not even an incompetent woman. It appears she's competent.
Yeah.
So on top of that, that's even worse.
And I've heard a couple of interviews with her, and if you don't think she's competent, just ask her.
Yeah, I think she's pretty confident.
She's pretty happy with herself.
She's got a reputation of being pretty tough, but then good on her. I mean, you can't really be a good AFL CEO and be weak. But then so her name is Tracy Gaudry. She's a dual Olympian. She was at Atlanta and Sydney as a cyclist.
Right.
She also was behind the Nitro Athletics event in Melbourne, which was the Usain Bolt one. And she also was general manager at Athletic Australia. She's vice president of cycling's world governing body, the Union Cyclist International. And she was a contributor to the International Olympic Committee on Gender Inclusion. She also was in the running, interestingly, and we'll get to this later about the Olympics, but she was on, I believe, John Coates's ticket. So she obviously likes bullying too and hates people with cancer. She's actually a cancer survivor, so I would have been interested to see her views on Coates's comments. So actually, because she's been appointed to this, she said, I'm not running for the board, which is seen as a blow to Coates's thing. Now, on top of that, she's a mother of three, which is not relevant considering when you're a man's appointed, they never mention his children. The only time they always mention when a woman's appointed, they mention her family. The only time a man, when he's appointed, they mention his family is when he's being sacked. They say he wants to spend more time with his family.
Or when he resigns, he wants to spend more time with that family who he hasn't had any time for the last 12 years.
So she also has a master's degree in management and bachelor degrees in science and commerce. So a bit of an underachiever.
Yeah, and she's now got to work. Well, shortly she's going to be working out in Dingley for the Hawks. So it's all up against her.
And she's picked the best time to come on board.
Oh yeah, and she's come. I think the first thing she actually said, I think this morning, was hands off Clarko.
Yeah, but the other thing she said though is it's a great time to become CEO, and I thought,
we'll see about that.
But the thing here is, they have a huge job because they made this decision to relocate to Dingley, which is a massive financial and infrastructure and project management undertaking, made at the height of their success when they seemed like they had huge memberships, they were winning premierships and everything. It's going to be interesting if the squeeze comes on, if this trend continues over like 2 to 3 to 4 years, which can happen in the AFL, being at the bottom, membership drops off as all these lifelong Hawthorn supporters that started supporting them in 2009
dogs who were members
and all the pet memberships start to dry up. That project get in trouble? So I'm not saying it will, but it's a challenging time to come on board. It's not easy. So
good luck to her.
Good luck to her. And it is going to be very interesting to see what happens now with the Olympics with her ducking out of that. Importantly, even more importantly, probably the biggest story, we've buried the league this week. AFL ticked off on the Gold Coast wearing their red and yellow jumper in Shanghai.
Oh, the Chinese match.
For the Chinese connection.
Right.
Where they're going to win over the tens of Chinese people that actually see this game.
Have you seen the photos of the stadium?
Not recent
which is already sold out, mind you, by the way, 10,000 people. They're all on those, like, they've put up those little grandstands, the the temporary grandstands like you see at the Grand Prix.
Oh, right.
All
that's
around the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been to China too often, but when they build things, they generally have scaffolding made of bamboo all around it. And it's not unheard of for them just to topple over at any point because
exciting.
The occupational health and safety regulations not that big in China.
Watching Port Adelaide play the Suns, I'm
hoping to see in the middle of the game the whole grandstand just go on its side and topple over. Hilarious.
With no one hurt, of course.
No.
Well, it depends who's sitting in it, I guess. It's very exciting. Matt Cerrone wrote in, Suns to wear their traditional 6-year-old jumper in China.
Good point, Matt.
Really fought hard for it. It's a great...
We heard from Kochi on this because he's
gone very quiet.
He was savage about this idea.
Well, but there's no doubt that the mistake here was he didn't get it put into the agreement and the contract
in the first
after
place.
The fact realised it and then had a big tantrum as his way of trying to overcome his lack of legal standing in the matter. You know?
Looking forward to this game.
Can you imagine, though? I don't know what Port Adelaide supporters think about this, but there's no doubt this season for them so far has been way above expectations for everyone. And even though some Port Adelaide people say, oh, no one believed in us, but I did. They didn't. I don't believe they did, right? So credit to them. They're playing some really good footy and they're so much better than they've been. In the middle of that improvement and that going really well, they're going to go over to China with all that international travel and mucking around and everything and then come back. They'd want to come back. One, they'd want to win over there, but two, they'd want to come back in pretty good form.
Pretty good, Nick, and pretty good
I know they're
form,
going to bye week the week after, but, you don't want that to sort of...
You still don't want to
because it's a massive logistical
You don't want to be
pain
ringing up China here still looking for your luggage 10 days later.
I was talking to people at both the AFL and Channel 7 who are talking about the amount of admin that has gone into just sending everyone over there, all the equipment, everything. It is
the bureaucracy that
with China,
hoops they'd have to jump through.
It is been a massive logistical nightmare. So if the payoff is they win over large sections of the Chinese community and all what Koshi talks about and the money and all that, well, great. But you'd want it to really be a big success because it hasn't been a small exercise.
No.
By any long shot.
And with any luck, North Korea will just fire a missile the week before and it'll just...
Not happen.
And,
although I am warming to the idea of sending BT to China.
Well, that's... Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then dobbing him in for something.
I'll sell him some headphones.
That's right. I'm all for that. I don't want to put ideas in people's heads.
If there's anywhere you can buy cheap, dodgy headphones, it's in Shanghai.
Something that caught my eye this week that we've talked about this before about how a lot of politicians come unstuck when they try and pretend they're sports fans. And there's no greater pretender in this area than Malcolm Turnbull, who is, as we record this, is currently our Prime Minister. You have to check these days.
Yeah, you do. It's around lunchtime Tuesday, but Prime Minister, bear that in mind.
Being Prime Minister now is a bit like being a caretaker coach.
Yes.
There's no certainty in it.
No.
And
as you say, as far as being a sports-loving Prime Minister, we've had a few who love their sport.
Gillard was a big Bulldogs fan.
Yeah.
So she's probably been the biggest sports fan. But Bill Shorten changed AFL teams.
Oh, Bill Shorten, he's a pretender.
He changed AFL teams, that's all you need to know about someone.
Yeah. You go back, it's probably... Like John Howard loved his cricket.
Allegedly. I saw him bowl and I wonder how true that all is.
He didn't pretend otherwise. Paul Keating was... He hated quite open, saying it's not his go.
Yeah,
and
which should have meant he wasn't Prime Minister at all.
But he still won a couple of elections despite that.
Well, yeah.
And then I think you've got to go back to Malcolm Fraser's and Robert Menzies, who were big Carlton supporters.
Well, the Fraser government was not a huge fan of investing in sport. Oh, Hawke was.
Yeah, he loved his sport.
Yeah, he just liked the drinking, I think, that went with the sport. But he was a sports fan. So we've had a few. It's been up and down depending, and it seems to cross across. There's no bipartisan. There's no partisan thread through it. It tends to be some Labor.
Kevin Rudd. No,
I reckon Kevin. The worst thing about Kevin Rudd. See. Kevin Rudd, this sort of probably sums up Kevin Rudd. He pretended to be a sports fan, but it was just blatantly obvious that's not who he actually was.
Yeah.
At least with Keating, he was like, I'm not a sports fan.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of disdained it. He did a few half-ass pretended to be a Collingwood supporter briefly.
Yeah,
but even that, you could tell he wasn't trying.
No.
Kevin pretended he was a massive Lions fan, and he really acted like he was into it. And you were like,
I had no idea.
You know, you can tell.
Of course, you can tell.
And you can tell when Turnbull tries to be into it, because this week at an announcement,
this was great.
He invited up to the microphone in front of all the media. North Queensland in the NRL, Gavin Cooper. He was there, and he said he's the second rower, Cooper. And he said, "Oh, come up and." Well, we'll get you interviewed.
And this just fill us in.
This is a media conference.
Yeah, but about was it a new stadium that they're going to build?
Yeah, it's up in
they had a model.
is it Townsville
or
Cairns? I can't remember.
Up there for the North Queensland.
Yeah,
whatever they are.
So it's
crocodiles or something.
They're announcing a new stadium. So anyway, they have the North Queensland.
They had a model
Cowboys.
of the stadium there.
Yeah, so they asked let's get a player up there with the Prime Minister, so it looks like he knows what he's talking about. Get a bit of glamour and all that involved. So Turnbull, as Cooper kind of comes to the front, and he's in his polo of the team polo and all that, and Turnbull says, "Oh, come up! We've just marked the try line for you," pointing at the model, really confidently. Yeah. And then he says, "You're going to, you'll be, crossing and scoring that, So he didn't know what a try was. He didn't know what to say.
He didn't even know what sport it was, basically.
He sort of kept floundering and saying, you'll be scoring that.
Yeah, whatever. You play the game,
Yeah, you know what it is.
Oh,
it was just the worst bit of banter.
It was embarrassing. It was terrible.
It just was great. I loved it.
Yeah, no, he's just, he just can't pull that side of it off. But even Tony Abbott probably wouldn't have been as bad in that regard.
Tony Abbott struck me less of a sports fan. He probably was, but he struck me more as he seemed to be cycling or doing sport himself.
He was a sporting type.
Himself, he was a boxer and
a runner, and he always looks fit.
He was doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Instead of governing, he was running and cycling and swimming. It was a bit like just having a triathlete run the country for a while, but still do the triathlons. Anyway, they're all hopeless. We all know that federally. It's been a nightmare for years. Olympics, talking about nightmares. John Coates and Danny Roach this Saturday.
I was about to say, it's this weekend, isn't it? The big vote.
I love it. It's on a Saturday.
Are they going to be... Will Sky News cover it? Will they have the worm?
Right. There's been some polling done. The Herald Sun did a poll, and they believe that Danny Roach is going to win. I've talked to a couple of people who are involved in the election, and they tell me that Coates will certainly win. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Because basically each of the different sports get votes, and it's basically been gerrymandered in such a way that it's almost impossible for a challenger to win. That's what I've been told by a few different people, and they say Coates is certainly going to win. Now,
and see, that will surprise a lot of people, because if you don't follow this closely, you'd think there's obviously a groundswell for Danny Roach and get rid of Coates, and he's been there 27 years and he gets paid too much. It seems like an obvious landslide to the challenger. But, I've heard a couple of people say, Coates is arguably Australia's greatest political operator since Graham Richardson. Yeah. Don't write him off. He will win this. And probably win it convincingly.
I've heard very much he will win it.
Yeah.
I turned off Coates the minute I realised what a big supporter Kitty Chiller is of him.
Does Kitty get a vote?
Oh, I don't know if she does. I don't know if you got to be in charge of one of the sports, basically.
Does Mike Tankred get a vote, or is he...
He's just threatening to kill anyone who doesn't vote for Coates.
Yeah.
Because he wants his job back. Now, they're going to have on Friday night, the night ahead of the vote, there's a cocktail party. This just sums up the Olympic movement here, right?
Doesn't it?
So it says president rivals John Coates and Danny Roach will come face-to-face at a lavish cocktail party overlooking Sydney Harbour as the Australian Olympic Committee vote rests on a night edge. He'll make an 11th-hour pitch at the president's cocktail function at the Museum for Contemporary Art in Circular Quay hours before he faces the first election in his 27-year reign. So it's good to see them keeping in touch with the common people.
I was about to say that they've toned down that air of extravagance.
Just the fact they're having a cocktail function.
See, if Danny Roach was smart, she'd get up here and say, have a look around you. Never again.
Well, she's not going to get a chance to speak.
Oh, it's
his function.
It's not like a televised debate.
He's called this cocktail drinks thing. Pouring, obviously,
will he be wearing all these medals that the Olympic Federation have given him?
Yeah, it's just like one of those tin pot best spots.
You know, he got into trouble for talking about the sheltered workshop.
Yeah.
His response to that was, you know, some of my best friends are Paralympians. They even gave me a medal.
Literally gave me a medal. Yeah. Some of my best friends live in sheltered workshops, he said. He did come out and apologise for that comment.
He did.
But not about abusing the woman on email who was having treatment for cancer. So I thought that was a bit, just apologise for... You can apologise for just one of them.
But he's going to win this election.
He probably will. Yeah. But, I mean, how's that going to help the Olympic movement? Now everyone knows what...
See, this is the problem. This is one of the problems. The Olympic movement is suddenly secondary to this personality crisis and battle. Nobody cares about the sports.
This is like, he'll win the battle but lose the war. All it's going to do is John Wiley at the Australian Sporting Commission, he doesn't want to give him any money. No. He controls most of the money.
It's going to get even nastier.
Oh, it's not going to get any better. At
least that's something we can look forward to.
Oh, I'm thrilled. It says both Roach and Coates have already made pitches to sports ranging from badminton to volleyball to garner support ahead of Saturday's vote.
Quidditch? What about Quidditch?
I tell you what, it's hard to lock down the badminton vote. This is the thing is the Olympics is so bizarre because it's all these sports that no one cares about for 4 years.
And badminton, there's about 4 people who play
it, and they've got the vote in this huge
on the same value as swimming. So
I'm not sure if it's by they have different amounts of delegates depending on the type of sport and stuff, or whether it's just a straight 1-for-1.
I think it might be pretty close to a 1-for-1.
That's pretty funny if badminton were right up there with sports. No offence to badminton, it is Australia's sleeping giant of sports. Many people say it's soccer.
I think,
I say you wait till badminton really gets. Has anyone ever played badminton sober?
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
I've never played it sober. It's like table tennis.
You do it on a beach. Normally,
after
down Christmas
the beach house, I was like, that's right.
When you
get up and have a few swings and then get sick of it because the shuttlecock gets caught in the tea tree
or the net and you can't get it down.
You go, screw that.
And you've had just enough to drink to say, see the shuttlecock? You can hit it as hard as you like. And then it'll drop after about 5 metres. And you think that's the funniest thing ever.
You say, kids, climb up. You're small. Climb up in that tree and get that. Anyway, it will be interesting. The only thing that might hurt Coates is Tracy Gaudry going to Hawthorn. So he's lost one of his candidates there, which is lose one, okay. Lose 2 starts to look careless.
Yeah, but pick up badminton along the way.
Serge, I wondered if you were involved in this when I first read it, but it's not you.
No,
I also worried when yesterday I heard that a half-naked man was arrested on the roof of Government House in Victoria. I thought, I better just text Serge and see where he is.
No, whenever I want to, invade
on the roof.
A government building, I usually tend to keep my gear on.
Oh, yeah, it's sensible. Yeah. So a bloke has sued his footy club after a coach threw an egg at his head. A Victorian man is suing his country footy club after his coach threw an egg at him and that struck him in the eye, requiring surgery. So not a...
was it a hard
got egg all over your face?
Yeah, there you go. It was only a matter of time.
Joel Quarrell, 23, is suing the Lake Wendouree Football Club and coach Gavin Webb over the egg affair during the silly Sunday celebrations. Well, you could argue he was warned.
Well, I was about to say, if I was acting for the footy club on this... I would say to the plaintiff, the phrase silly Sunday may have suggested to you that things were maybe going to get a little bit out of hand. When I first did hear this, though, that the coach threw an egg at this bloke and hurt him, I thought it was during a game. I thought...
like a three-quarter time.
Three-quarter time, you blokes, you get, bang.
As soft as this egg.
Yeah, bang, right in the sky.
Turns out this egg is quite hard.
Yeah, it was hard-boiled.
It said that he alleges the club was negligent by allowing him to be struck with the egg and failing to ensure that the silly Sunday celebrations were conducted safely.
Oh, yeah. On shaky ground.
This is the problem with Gen Y. In my day, being struck by an egg from the coach and having to have surgery was a privilege.
Was a badge of honour.
It was something we hoped would happen.
It just shows you that the coach cares enough about you.
Yeah.
That he's going to attack you with a missile.
It doesn't say how bad. I mean, in all seriousness, his eyes probably it requires surgery.
I think he's pretty much lost sight in one eye.
Yeah, well, I could understand why he'd be fairly annoyed.
Yeah, well, exactly. We're laughing about it, but he did cop a pretty serious injury.
We are laughing about it because it is ridiculously silly.
Yeah.
But even ridiculously silly Sunday celebrations can have life-altering outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
And really,
unforeseen circumstances.
You shouldn't really be an adult and throwing an egg at something. That's what you do when you're a kid.
Yeah, that's true. It's the sort of thing we used to do it to cars going past.
Yeah.
You know?
We used to
Have you ever done the one where you'd get an egg, you'd stick a needle through it, so you had a little hole at each end, and then you would thread through black cotton, right?
Right.
So you would then put it across the road at about eye level. So a car would come around the bend. I can tell by the look in your face you've never done this. We used to do it, okay? And you'd stretch it out across the road at eye level. So a car would come around the corner and see what appears to be an egg in midair. And by the time they're thinking about, is that really an egg, it splats on their windscreen. And it's the funniest thing you've ever seen when you...
How many people did you almost kill?
Oh, over one summer, good couple of dozen.
You did decapitate a motorcyclist coming around the bench, right? Well, kids that are listening to this, I hope kids aren't listening to this.
That.
Don't do what Uncle Serge says.
Only do it on silly Sundays.
So, gee... They do get out of hand, these silly Sundays. I'm glad I was never popular enough to be invited to them. Now, something that really caught my eye this week, and it hasn't made a lot of the media over here, but it was in New Zealand.
Yeah, I didn't know about
or
this.
Or as I like to call it, Lesser Australia. They've proposed, they're having a bit of a talk about having a new stadium over there in Auckland. And they were thinking about, well, how do we do this? It's going to be interesting. So they've come up with an idea dubbed The Crater.
The Crater.
So what it is...
It's got a touch of New Zealand about it already.
So it's basically going to be a stadium. So instead of the stadium being above ground...
Right.
It's going to be in they're going to dig a crater and then build a stadium in the crater.
So you can walk up to the edge,
You
basically.
can walk up to the top of the stand, basically. So that's so it's in the thing. Now, that in itself is interesting, right? What's even more interesting, there's no roof or anything. That's just, how it's so...
Won't be nearly as impressive when Channel 7 crossed to Sam Lane standing up on the
roof,
edge,
Well, you actually ground level, Sam.
Yeah.
So that's what they want to do, right? Dig into the ground, build the stadium basically nestled in the ground, right?
Yeah. Interesting idea.
The interesting thing is, it's on the waterfront. So literally in the pictures, the water comes up to the top of the stadium.
Lapping at the edge.
Lapping at the top.
Edge. Oh,
and
hello.
I can see
hello, climate change.
I was reading this going, I spot a small flaw in your plan here.
Oh, the biggest flaw I could see, will they have space for yoga like at the the restored Etihad?
Can you imagine one of the concepts about this is they have got a roofed version as well, which I think it would be sensible because water pouring into the stadium is not a great idea.
No.
But to give you an idea how close this actually is to the water, there is no huge gap to the water. It's It's right
on the edge.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the ideas is...
Auckland Harbour.
Yeah, one of the concepts incorporates new cruise ship terminals that would flank the facility.
Oh, there you go.
Just pull up and look down, and you're looking down at the stadium, even though you're in a cruise ship. Oh, now I can see a cruise ship actually going a bit beyond its mooring and catastrophically crashing into the stadium.
I want to see. Remember Speed 2?
Do I?
When Keanu Reeves was on the cruise ship that ran aground. Oh, I'd like to see this. I mean, it's an interesting idea. You got to give him credit for that.
But there's lots of. So it was created by. Auckland design and marketing figure Phil O'Reilly, no relation.
Right.
You got to think, is the best person to be designing a stadium a marketing figure?
Well, it sounds to me like Phil O'Reilly. The last time we heard from Phil, he was trying to sell a monorail to the people of Springfield.
That's right. He said, you've got to think outside the box. Why not put it into the harbour?
There's no obvious answer to that.
Oh, there is an obvious answer, Phil. It's called water.
Yes.
It's going to flood your stadium and drown. You don't want to I know
Auckland's probably not a 10,000 people cyclone
drowned.
Sort of, place, but you get bad weather everywhere. And as you say, water lapping over the edge. What if it's not just water lapping over the edge? It's a fair dinkum big 12-foot swell.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've got cruise ships
pulling up.
And you've got blokes standing on the top fishing. Could be a disaster.
I tell you what, during that St Kilda Melbourne first half last week, I was praying for me to drown. I would have prayed for water to just flood the stadium.
Open the roof and just stand there with a hose.
So well done, Auckland. I can't wait for you to build that.
I hope they do that.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
And, Koch will be the first team who want Port Adelaide to play there.
Oh, remember how well St Kilda
they won over New Zealand.
Yeah, totally won them over. So much so they don't even have to go back anymore. Getting to our listeners' questions, Dread Pirate Robert, it's always good to hear from our nautical...
Dread Pirate, he'd be all over this stadium.
Yeah, he'd love it.
This underwater stadium.
He can rob people while they're watching sport. Just hoist the skull and crossbones, make you walk the plank into the stadium. So Dread Pirate Robert said, how much credit will Mick Malthouse take for Carlton's win over Sydney? Oh, he has to take a lot, I'd say.
Does.
I like how they're doing this pretense of not playing So they're not playing Daisy Thomas, and they say because his form's been up and down and soreness and all this. But really, if he plays us a certain amount of
16 games, I reckon that's the trigger.
He triggers a fifth year on his contract, so they're just obviously not going to let him get to that no matter what, but pretend it's all...
But he played really well for
he was best on ground in the VFL, so I'm looking forward to them coming
What's their excuse this week for not playing
I reckon Bolton's just going to train him so hard that he does an injury. Everyone, we finish up, except for you, Daisy.
Daisy, come over
20 more laps.
Yeah, which of those ankles did you have it fused about 18 months ago?
Jump on that for an hour. So they are doing that. I think you've got to give Mick a lot of credit. He's built the base of this success for this wonderful Carlton side. Ralphie Horowitz, Racetrack Ralphie's written in, do you think that Nat Fyfe's manager quashing the $1.5 million offer from the Saints? So for people who don't know, on Perth radio yesterday, they announced that Fyfe has agreed to a $1.5 million deal to go to the Saints next year. Ralphie says, do you think that Nat Fyfe's manager quashing the $1.5 million offer from the Saints has damaged Perth FM Brekkie radio as a news source?
Oh, look, I usually agree with everything Ralphie says, but I think he's missed the boat here. I mean, traditionally 96 FM with Carmen and Fitzy is your go-to media source for all great news.
It's the public record.
It is.
In Australia. It's the New York Times of Australia.
Yeah, all the news that's fit to print comes straight out of 96 FM.
So both St Kilda and Fyfe's manager have come out and rubbished this claim and said Fyfe has not agreed to a $1.5 million deal with St Kilda. Now, he can't agree to a deal.
He's a restricted free agent anyway.
Yeah, so he can't have anyway. And that's what they'd say no matter what. So the Perth...
We still don't know what the truth is because they're all going to deny.
Well, they've come out this morning, the Brekkie show, and said we stand by our...
fair enough. Alan
rumour.
Richardson, the St Kilda coach, when he was asked about it yesterday, he sounded more annoyed about the alleged source for this story, which was, according to Fitzy at 96 FM, was a high-placed St Kilda board member, a director, who told I don't know whether he's told
that
Fitzy
would be like a board member to
a mate
talk
of a
too
mate.
Much.
To leak to a media source. Don't know what he was doing in Perth, just quietly, but yeah, they're sticking with it. 96 FM. If this does happen next year, well, we'll owe a big apology to Fitzy.
Well, who knows? I mean, they could be right. You just don't know.
Of course, you don't know.
But I mean, that's the great thing about being in the media.
Good get. Nat Fyfe be a good get for the Saints, though.
He seems to be avoiding injury this year, so that's always been my worry about putting a whole lot of money.
2 broken legs.
I don't know. I'm a big believer, and not just in AFL, I've seen it in other sports, it rarely works. Spending huge amounts of money on a free agent, it rarely goes really, really well. It tends to squeeze your salary cap, and they never can...
quite recover from it, yeah.
I mean... look, Nat Fyfe might be the difference, and going into a St Kilda team that's obviously on the improve and decent already, it could make a big difference. But like look at Judd to Carlton. The thing about AFL, we've said this before, is plugging a player like that into any side doesn't instantly. It's not like plugging LeBron into a side.
No, it doesn't instantly change the whole.
Well, make them better, sure, but you know. If you don't address the key bits you actually need.
Probably the best one of recent times that's worked is Buddy Franklin to Sydney. But he was going into a pretty good side anyway.
He was going into a good side, and there are people that would argue now part of the Swans' problem is because of Buddy and Tippett's contract.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
lost Mumford.
Yeah.
They've had to lose Mitchell. Yeah. There's a host of players.
They nearly lost Heaney.
Yeah, there's a host of players that they have had to move on. There is a squeeze that happens. Yeah. It's not all, which is the point of a salary cap, right? Like you can't, you can't sign some or keep good sides together if you've got lots of good players. That's the idea of it. Michael Barbaro wrote, looking ahead to round 10, Friday night football sees the Hawks travel to the SCG to take on the Swans. Any chance you guys can use your contacts in the industry to make sure Happy Gilmore is on another channel?
Michael, Netflix is all I'll say to you there.
God, that is going to be a terrible game.
Happy Gilmore is on Netflix.
Go for it.
You can play it anytime you like. But while we're on Adam Sandler movies, please avoid his new one on Netflix, Sandy Wexler.
It Netflix
is absolute tripe.
But his mask, he hasn't. I mean, he sort of came out and did Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, which most people were like, yeah, they were pretty funny. And then since that's just been...
Well, this is why he just does Netflix movies now. He's got a big deal to do movies for Netflix.
Same people that watch the Footy Show probably watch it.
Yeah.
Jared Clark wrote, I know it's been kept quiet, but did you know that apparently Alex Rance is the only player to be All-Australian the last 3 years?
I'm glad you brought that up, Jared. I wouldn't have known that.
Herald, the Channel 7 did not mention that.
No.
Every 2 minutes.
I'm glad you pointed that out because now I can bring it up on this podcast every week.
I should say to Jared, I've got one back right at him. Does he know that Scott Pendlebury used to play basketball?
Well, there you go.
Well, I'll tell you who does know that. Peter Nightingale, who wrote, after Mason Cox's cringeworthy attempt at a basketball throw of the football on the weekend, do you know any other Collingwood players with a basketball background who could help him improve that side of his game?
Well, I didn't know until just then when you pointed out that Scott Pendlebury had a bit of a basketball.
Was Canadian. Did you know that?
Mike Pike, yeah.
Not many people know that. These are big secrets that we don't get told.
Mike Pike's history as an ice hockey player in Canada never really helped him on the footy field.
It was rugby union he played. Remember he scored a try for Canada in the World Cup. I loved how BT once said Pike was the worst footballer he'd ever seen, then Pike went on to be quite good. It's one of my favourite little stories. Yeah, it is quite good.
More than BT did, I think.
Yeah. Billy Cooper said, is there any danger of Carlton receiving credit? Now, you can tell Billy here is a long-suffering Blues supporter.
Yeah.
Is there any danger of Carlton receiving credit or airtime for the good things happening at the club? Every time we win, it seems the story in the aftermath is always how the other team are in dire straits. Pretty handy long-term spine being developed there. Well, Billy, I've got to say, there is no chance of that happening. We're always just going to focus.
Yeah, I mean, geez, Billy, you're taking it a bit seriously here. I mean,
you never get any credit until suddenly when you not just Carlton but any team, right? The way it works is no credit, you're either on the edge of crisis or in crisis. This is how I look at football. How the media looks at it. You're either in crisis and people have to be sacked.
Yes.
And you're never going to recover ever.
Yes.
Then you move into you're recovering and going okay and building towards something, but you're not very good. But actually, it's not justified. You actually are improving. You're not just talking about having
like a Melbourne or a St Kilda,
say Kilda. When then people just say, you're inconsistent, but they don't really say much about you because it's kind of boring. You're kind of pretty boring.
Yep.
And then there's the top sides, which everyone then acts like, I always knew they were a top side, and these are the reasons why, even though I've never talked about the good things before. Suddenly now, this is why I've been saying the Bulldogs have been one of the better sides, and they've been really clever building this list. So that's the only way. And then you praise them beyond belief about how amazing they are.
Yeah, there's no in between.
That's the way it is. So Carlton are trapped in that. You're never going to get that. Plus, it's like, what's a better story? This team is in crisis, or this team's going okay.
Oh, in crisis is much better. But it's always much funnier.
Much funnier.
Much funnier.
Plus, no one likes it when Carlton win.
No.
Corey Wickett wrote in, given the D's will be favourite to beat the Hawks on Sunday, how much will Hawthorn win by?
5 goals at least, Corey, I'd say. As a Melbourne supporter, other than the fact that when was the last time were we favourites against Hawthorn?
Against anyone and won.
Yeah, well, that's true. But
Not
especially
often.
Against Hawthorn.
I mean, we were against Essendon, I guess, favourites technically, but I didn't think we were.
But we were favourites against Fremantle as well.
And didn't we show them?
I reckon if ever the Melbourne are going to drop a game, it'll be this week against Hawthorn.
Well, if ever. I mean, you say it like it's so rare.
Yeah. If ever they're going to drop a game.
Well, actually, they do it all the time.
Yeah, they do it every second week.
Rodney Gardner wrote in, Warrnambool May Racing Carnival is on this week. That is all. Now, can you remember what Rodney's reminding us of?
He's last year's Warrnambool Racing Carnival.
One for the ages.
One of the greatest of all time. This was when, just to jog your memory, I'm trying to remember.
All the jockeys went out the night before to the Warrnambool pub or whatever it's...
And got on it.
And got on the rosé.
That's right. They were all drinking rosé because it's obviously not as fattening as beer, not as many carbs as beer.
That's right.
But then they all got breath tested the next morning.
While racing.
Yeah. Walking the horse up to the,
And all got found to be drink
Damien
riding.
Oliver. They were sent home.
Yeah. Too much rosé the night before.
There you go.
So... is it the Whalers Arms or something down there?
Yeah, it's the Whalers.
Yeah, the Whalers.
The Whalers. It's the
I've been there before.
It's a pub in Warrnambool. It's got 2 big whale tusks outside the front, or it used to. And that's where the jockeys...
I had fun in Warrnambool when I was last there.
You what?
I had fun in Warrnambool.
Oh,
when saw the whales.
Yeah.
Drank a lot of rosé.
I'll tell you
Rode a horse.
Yeah. See, let's hope. Let's just hope the jockeys get on it again this year.
I hope the pub down there... put just as a bit of a joke, if someone could get the word to them, I hope they put rosé on special.
Yeah.
The night before, just as a bit of a joke. That'd be good.
I'd like to see that.
Belinda K wrote in: If a mate is no longer an acceptable excuse, will the next AFL betting scandal be blamed on the player's dog? Because we learned last week why you can't blame your mate.
Yeah, we understand that because it's the.
I think a dog is always good to blame.
Yeah, and look...
blame him. No player in this area, they've done it in every other area, no one's blamed their girlfriend yet for their betting problems. No. That would be a sensible next step.
Yeah,
always good to blame a woman for something.
That's simply a matter of time. And look, betting scandals, again, I think are overrated because, as you and I have said on numerous occasions, we encourage betting. There's nothing greater in Australian life than betting on sport, whether you do it legally or illegally, or you hand your card to a mate. I'm all in. I won't be. I won't be happy until we see pokies in schools.
You know why I love gambling? Because it's impossible to lose money. It is the best investment you can make for your family.
Exactly my point.
Just pour,
Look, if you're going down to Warrnambool...
I don't know how pokies are legal. It's just a way of making money. It's just a license to print money.
If you're going to Warrnambool, gamble as often as possible and as heavily as possible. Trust me on this, you will come home with pockets full.
Well, please, I hope the people down at Warrnambool will put the rosé on special.
Yep.
We will be back on Thursday.
Yep, a couple of days away. And... a big preview of round 7, perhaps.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be a massive game. I mean, it's a pity Richmond season's over, but there's a lot of other teams still playing. We'll see you on Thursday.